Dear participants of the conference, let us present the topic Corpus Technologies in Translation Studies, Fiction as Document. I am presenting on behalf of the co-authors Nataliia, Hrytsiv, that is me, Tetiana, Shestakevych, and Shyyka. Thus, to mention a couple of the introductory notes, we work with a central notion, which is corpus of texts. The linguistic corpus is characterized by some unique features that distinguish it from ordinary collections of digital text. The basic features of the text corpus are machine readable and representativeness. We have Scholar Dash and Chaudhary, who define corpus as a collection of linguistic data composed either from written text or from transcribed oral texts, the main purpose of which is to examine hypotheses about language. The main problem in corpus linguistics is the creation of means of automatic or at least automated text annotation according to different criteria: morphological, orthoepic, semantic, syntactic, so on. Thus, to mention structuring of the case study, in here we talk about the linguistic corpus, which contains a markup on at least one linguistic parameter. The process of tagging or annotation is to attribute to the text and their components special tags: external, extra-linguistic, structural, linguistic. The distinction between annotation and structural markup of the corpus data is based on the definition of annotation offered by Leach, according to which the process of annotation of corpus data is the adding of interpreted linguistic information to the digital corpus of oral and written speech. The term interpreted linguistic information means an annotation that is to some extent a product of the understanding of the text by the human mind. Markup provides relatively objective, verified information about the cause of the corpus and the structure of each text. Linguistic annotation in corpus linguistics is traditionally interpreted as any linguistic information about linguistically relevant units of text data presented in a formal code, adding formalized linguistic information into the digital text, presence of such information in text. We paid attention to the following types of markup: morphological, syntactic, semantic, anaphoric. During the creation of the corpus, several procedures and programs are used. In here, we talk about tokenization, lemmatization, stemming, and parsing. Compiling a corpus and its use can be implemented according to the model annotation, abstraction, analysis. The first stage involves the collection, standardization, segmentation, processing, and often manual checking of text. At the second stage, the research topic is selected, the parameters are determined, and the corresponding fragment is removed from the corpus. At the final stage, the hypothesis is constructed and examined, specific rules and systematized structures are searched. We paid attention to certain constraints. That is, within our research, text should be chronologically limited, text should be limited in the genre, text should be thematically limited, text should be homogeneous in the author's formula, and we came up to certain results and discussion. Thus, in our study, priority has been given to the vocabulary of the original text and its translation, and with the help of the automatic processing of the corpus and statistical calculations, several important characteristics have been defined which can form the basis for clarifying the writer's individual style and help to conclude the aesthetic significance of the original text and its translations. From the point of view of the quantitative linguistic analysis of text, several problems have been defined which refer to the stylistic aspect of research of vocabulary of the given text, in particular a volume of the text, that is to mention total number of words in the text, volume of vocabulary, number of word forms, the volume of the vocabulary of lexives, the number of lemmatized words in the text, Hapax legomena. In here we talk about words that occur in the sample once and their frequency equals to 1. The number of words with a frequency less of which equals to 10, number of letters, number of sentences, number of content words, and number of functional words. And based on these statistic data, it is possible to calculate the vocabulary richness or diversity index, the average repeatability of the words in the text, exclusivity index, dictionary concentration index, lexical density index, automatic readability index, noun phrases index, verb phrases index, degree of nominality, verb index, aggressiveness index, logical coherence index, embellism index. Morphological markup of the corpus of short stories has been performed. The classical division of word into parts of speech has been applied, and for each part of speech, its frequency in the text and the author's vocabulary, or so to say, register, has been automatically obtained. The most frequent words in the original text are functional words that equals to 5.2% of the vocabulary. They function most actively in the text and cover almost a third of it, that is 30.7%. Pronouns are also frequently used in the text, that is 3% of the vocabulary and about 13% of the text. Adverbs have approximately the same percentage in the text and the vocabulary, that is 9% and 10% respectively. And numerals, about 1%. Histogram, we have it in the whole paper, right? That is figure 5. Nouns, that is 22% and 39%, verbs 19% and 26%, and adjectives 8% and 16% in the text and the writer's vocabulary, respectively, confirm their stylistic function, and their ratio proves the nominality of Jack London's individual style. The most frequent words in the target text, that is the translation, are the functional parts of speech, which have 5.74% of the vocabulary and 25.98% of the text. High frequency is also shown by pronouns, that is 3.07% of the vocabulary and 12.34% of the text. Adverbs, that is 9.06% of the vocabulary and 11.19% of the text. And numerals, that is 1.3% of the vocabulary. Nouns, in here we have the following figures: 25.23% and 33.13%. Verbs, 18.64% and 31.10%. And adjectives, that is 7.42% and 14.45% in the text and in the writer's vocabulary, prove their stylistic function, and their ratio shows the nominality of Jack London's individual style. In here we have the following. Thus, we have part of the speech frequency of the vocabulary and source in the source text and target text correspondingly, right? So we have, suppose, nouns, resemblance, right? We talk about word usage and words, and we talk about part of speech. Please have a look at the corresponding figures. Nouns, verbs, and adjectives are the most frequently used, as it becomes obvious from the table. The relative number in the vocabulary, on the contrary, exceeds the relative number in both source and target texts. These parts of speech present the richness of the vocabulary of the source and target text, and also the ratio confirms that the nominal character of the individual style of the original text was preserved in the translated text. Quantitative relations between parts of speech have been compared as they are considered key elements of the statistical characteristics of the text. In here we have quantitative relations between parts of speech. right? So far, we can see that suppose lexical density index is higher in the translated text than in the original, and suppose logical coherence index is higher in the original text than in the translated text. Concluding, thus, a collection of short stories by Jack London, The Son of the Wolf, and its translation into Ukrainian have been selected for analysis. In the study, the priority has been given to the lexical content of source and target text, and with the help of the automatic processing of the corpus and statistical calculations, several important characteristics have been identified. The paper presents a statistical analysis of selected works by Jack London and their translation into Ukrainian. Summing up the quantitative study of the collection, The Son of the Wolf, as a case study, it should be noted that indices of vocabulary richness, exclusivity for the text and the vocabulary, the concentration of the vocabulary do not differ significantly. The most frequent in the target text are functional words. The epithetization index both in source and target text does not differ significantly. We have 3.32 and 3.48 correspondingly, and therefore the translator managed to preserve the saturation of the text with figurative phrases. The index of verb phrases in the target text has a slightly bigger ratio. The degree of aggression is equal in source and target text. This confirms the fact that the nominal character of the original text is accurately reproduced in translate. That is actually it, in short, in brief. Thank you so much for your attention, and we hope this study will be followed up by some questions or commentaries. Thank you.